good morning. In Portsmouth Grammar School this morning with the head of the school, Mr. David Wicks. Morning, David.
Good morning.
So it's a beautiful day in Portsmouth. Thank you for joining us. If you have questions as we go through, please post them. And if you have questions, if you're watching this on catch up, we'll be happy to answer them later as well. So you can see the school in the background. I believe the students are just going to their first class.
That's correct. Morning lessons are about to begin.
So thank you for having me. I thought it was my first time to Portsmouth, and somebody reminded me I might have been here in 1980 something, but I don't remember.
Surely you're a toddler, a baby in arms at that stage.
So I'm going to consider this is certainly my first time to Portsmouth Grammar School.
Well, you're very welcome.
Thank you for having me. Now, I know that you have a few Hong Kong families here already, and we're going to hear from one of those parents later, and you have a number of Hong Kong students here. And so we want to talk about why Hong Kong parents might choose your school. I want to start with the name of the school, and I think Hong Kong parents and myself from my youth would know what a grammar school, what we think a grammar school is. Is Portsmouth School actually a grammar school?
It's a grammar school in the sense of when it was founded, it was a grammar school, and that speaks to our academically selective nature. But in British parlance, we're now an independent school. We've just retained the name that we were first created with in 1732.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clear that up. So tell me a bit about, we can see the school buildings behind, and tell us a little bit about the history of the school.
Yeah, so the school was founded in 1732. It was a donation from a local doctor who was keen to transform children's lives. We've been right at the heart of the city for a very long period of time. Our original school buildings are about 400 metres away from us, sitting on a roundabout. The school itself we took over a naval barracks in the late 19th century. So part of the school are the old officers' quarters, and part of the school are the ratings quarters. There's a tremendous history. Where my office sits is where the old Portsmouth Theatre used to be, and the legend has it it's where Charles Dickens wrote Nicholas Nickleby. And if you've read Nicholas Nickleby, you'll see a lot of it set in a theatre in Southsea. So it was likely to have been written there. And the great violinist Paganini also performed on that stage. So right in the heart. Now, obviously, historic buildings, but over a period of time, because we've been here a long period of time, we've looked to adapt and modernise. And so we've got a very modern science building, very modern sixth form centre, because although we enjoy our heritage and our tradition, we're also looking to the future all the time.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Portsmouth as a city, because it's not a million miles away from London. It's a 2 hour...
Less than that. I think it's an hour and a half, I think, on the train, the fast train.
Yeah, and as a school, it actually reminds me of a number of Hong Kong schools. It's actually not that different. So I think it's important to say that this is not a boarding school.
No.
So for parents who might be interested in a UK education, but not fully convinced that boarding is the right option, we're going to talk a bit more about how that works later on. But so tell us a little bit about how the school integrates with the city and how it's so convenient. Everything is just a few minutes away.
Well, that's right. So I mean, the vast majority of our students either come in on public transport or they walk to school. We're on what we call Portsea Island, so we're surrounded on three sides by the sea. My visits to Hong Kong, the water plays a central role in Hong Kong, so I enjoyed catching
slightly colder here, though.
Well, it is slightly colder, but it's one of the sunniest cities in the UK. And when I first came here, when the students asked me what I liked about it, what I said was the light. It's really bright here. The sun does shine, more than most places. So I think it's very warm and welcoming. The city itself, it's quite a densely packed city. It's one of the most densely packed cities in the UK. So people live cheek by jowl with one another, but that also makes it quite a friendly place. People are used to bumping into people, having conversations, talking, and so on. And it's quite a diverse city. Like many port cities, it's a diverse city. We have people from all over the world here. So there's a real sense of multiculturalism that goes on, and we celebrate different cultures. Last weekend, I was in the local theatre, the King's Theatre, for celebrations of Chinese New Year. It was amazing. The theatre was packed out. They sold all their tickets, and it was wonderful to see a celebration of Chinese culture and to see all the New Year celebrations.
There's sort of Chinese takeaways called Mayfair. Do you have a Chinese supermarket?
There is a Chinese supermarket, absolutely.
Okay, very important.
Yeah, well, no, absolutely.
So you mentioned diversity in the city. So it is important to say this is not a country school. It's not the rolling green hills of some of the very big boarding schools. And so the children are not boarding. Where are they living?
Yeah, so we believe in something called homestay. So children come over from overseas and they stay with host families. Now, those host families are thoroughly checked out in terms of their suitability and to ensure that it is a suitable environment for international students to come into. And the reason we like it is we think it's the best of both worlds. There's that sense of independence because they are living outside of school. There's a sense of personal connection because the homestay family can speak freely with the overseas family. And it really is that preparation for going off to university or going into the world beyond. It also helps with, I think, with integration because rather than being in a boarding house where you might club together, you're actually out in the city. So you get used to being in the city and you pick up local friends much more easily and you go out and socialise. So there's that real experience of being here in an urban environment, in a diverse urban environment, which then prepares you well for university and beyond.
So it's really immersion into
absolutely
not just school culture, but British
culture,
Portsmouth culture.
Absolutely. And British culture is various, and multicultural. So it's great being out in the city.
I didn't eat in the Chinese, but I ate in the Italian, which was very authentic, proper Italian owners, and
it's quite right. And we would point to Bangladeshi community or an Indian community. There's lots going on.
And also because the university is in town, so there's lots of student accommodation all around. So lots of international students here for the university.
Absolutely, and Portsmouth University itself is very keen on those international links, and we have a very good relationship with the university itself. The university is next door, so we have that multicultural experience. Yes.
So tell us in terms of the diversity in the school, are they predominantly British students?
Yes, they're predominantly British students, but coming from a variety of ethnic backgrounds. So one only has to walk across the school, and one can just see the diversity. And it's one of the things that I love most about the school. Is I look across what we call the quad, and we can just see both in terms of boys and girls, but also in terms of the different ethnicities that we have here. It's great because it brings it into a melting pot, and it's really useful for all the students here to become accustomed with the fact that people come from different backgrounds and come from different cultures, and there's a real vibrant exchange of ideas going on.
And that's it depends if the Hong Kong family is coming from a local school or an international school. I know that a lot of our families are coming already from an international school, which is very diverse background. I know that we're very fortunate to have your head boy here today, who we'll meet in a moment, and also one of your Hong Kong parents that we'll meet in a moment. And so I want to talk a little bit about how you have a small Hong Kong contingency here, but they're very much integrated into the community.
Absolutely. They're spread throughout the years, and they mingle. I mean, one wouldn't know. One can't tell which of the children on the homestays, which of the children who are based in Britain permanently, because everyone mixes together. And you will meet Oscar. I mean, he's our head of school. He plays rugby in the first 15. He plays in lots of bands. He's a fantastic musician, and he's a great representative for the school. So we're delighted to have him.
Shall we meet Oscar now? Oscar, if you'd like to come and take a seat here. If you have any questions for Mr. Wicks, for Oscar, for Mrs. Chan, a parent that we'll meet later on, please type your questions and I'll try to find a moment to have a look at those. Oscar, hello.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. So just tell us a little bit about your life at PGS.
So I've been here since reception, and my dad was from Hong Kong, but he decided that coming to coming to England was a better better educational backgrounds, but also a more diverse amount of opportunities I could get compared to if I was in Hong Kong. So that's why he preferred England. And so yeah, I've played rugby here. I've done a lot of music. I've done drama, performing.
And you've been here since you were 4?
I've been born here.
In this school?
Yep, I've been here since 4 years old until now.
Yeah, and what year are you in now?
I'm currently in year 13, and next year I'm looking at going to uni.
Right. So just tell us a little bit about the culture here at PGS from your point of view as a student.
So as someone of like Asian background, I think it's really nice that even though I am slightly different, I can like integrate with everyone really nicely, because all of the students are like really accepting of different cultures. The culture in general is just really diverse. We have like prayer rooms for different ethnicities. We have like people can just talk to different year groups just because they're they have like the same kind of background. So talking, I don't know, just about like socializing in general is just really nice and comfortable here.
So you're very much integrated.
Yeah.
And so we should switch to academics, because you've been through the school. You've done your GCSEs here,
Yeah.
and can you just tell us a little bit about your path to university?
So personally, I've always enjoyed like the STEM kind of subjects, sciences, maths, and I think being in PGS, they really like honing your skills on the subjects you love. They won't say no if you decide to switch paths or anything, but I know that I've had a very like comfortable like journey through GCSEs, currently through my A-levels. Like it's really nice that I'm getting sufficient support, like independence to like learn, further researching opportunities, and yeah, just having a great time cruising through A-levels.
Even in year 13?
Yep.
Cruising through A-levels?
Even year 13.
So may I ask which subjects you're taking?
So currently I am taking maths, physics and chemistry with AS further maths.
So that's going into engineering?
Engineering, yeah.
At
Cardiff, maybe looking at Southampton.
Okay, that's quite close.
Mm-hmm.
And then with a view to career, any ideas on career choice?
Hopefully to be a civil engineer, more so on like a management side, just because I think I excel a little bit more on like managing things rather than maybe.
You don't want to get your hands dirty.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
So what are the facilities like in I saw the DT lab yesterday, and facilities for STEM and for can you tell us a bit more?
So the science like section is really nice. It's clean, it's modern, all the equipment are checked out. Like we're allowed to do a lot of like experiments, having fun, messing around, doing the more practical side of things, not all just having theories, because truthfully, like learning about it in books and rewriting it down is great for learning, but just seeing the practical side of it and seeing the applications is just like you can truly visualize how things work. And that's why like the science department is really good here. And then with maths, there's a lot of support outside of just lessons. So we have clinics for all subjects, but for maths especially, there are like challenges going on, like ways that students can just like push themselves even further.
Right. So you're presumably a student that hasn't needed any additional support, but you're looking for extension and challenge. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
And that's been provided.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. We would love to chat with you more later, Oscar. Maybe if you have time. I think you probably have to get to lessons, do you?
I think I should be fine actually.
Thank you very much. We'll talk to Mrs. Chan in a moment. I think we'll come back, David. I want to pick up and extend a little bit more on the academics that Oscar's talked about, because Oscar's obviously one student, very capable student, presumably, obviously. What's the range of abilities within the school? And we often talk about value add. Yeah. So we're not every student is as brilliant as Oscar. And so what can you provide to those?
No, absolutely. So, I mean, I think we have a by British standards, a limited range, but there are a range of students here. At the top end, we really can push students on. We have between 6 to 10 students going to Oxbridge every year to read competitive courses, and as Oscar has alluded to, they're very well catered for and pushed on. But we like to think we're able to drive all students forwards. And you mentioned about value added. We do baseline testing when students come into the school, so from that we can get an assessment of what their natural ability would lead them towards. And then at GCSE, we can demonstrate that we add approximately half a grade per student per subject. That's what we would call our value added. How do we do that? Well, I think Oscar's spoken about the support that's available. We have a learning support department, which also is our English as an additional language provision. So the students are well catered for. And that's part of what helps with immersion, because obviously the one is able to speak English, the easier it is to have those conversations which have the immersion. So we can drive those students on. So we feel that we benefit every student that comes here. We cater for them. And I think, as you got a sense from Oscar, it's very much an individual journey. We're not trying to make people into bricks where they all look the same. We here talk about living stones. They're individual stones. We come together to build the dry stone wall that is Portsmouth Grammar School, but each person at the school is unique and they're on their journey. And what we want to do is support them with their journey, developing their skills, their attributes, also helping them meet their ambitions.
That's an interesting point. I think a lot of the Hong Kong schools are offering IB, and a lot of Hong Kong parents might look at a British school. We have a few in Hong Kong, but then a British school in the UK where it's GCSEs, which is a broad spectrum of subjects. But then some parents would be cautious about having their children specialise so young. But in a sense, you're saying that you play to their strengths. I mean,
we do indeed. We play to their strengths, and the choices are theirs. They're guided in their choices, but they get to choose the subjects that they are passionate about at A level. But I should say, in the sixth form, again, I mean, not wishing to sound like the best of both worlds in Homestay, but also in our sixth form, we have various other aspects to it. So we have a program called Ignite. So on a Thursday afternoon, the students have electives where they get to choose different courses, and the whole point of that is to inspire them, to ignite a passion in them to pursue. We also have something called Extend, where they have to do a project, an independent research project, and that might take the form of the EPQ, the Extended Project Qualification. We have increasing number of students doing that and doing very well at it. But if they decide that the EPQ is not for them, they still have to do an internal project, which they then have to produce and talk about. And we also have Community Action Workplace, which is something that we've taken very much from the IB, because we think that's a really important thing to do. So on Monday afternoons, our students go out into the local community, into workplaces, and they contribute back. So what we feel we've done is taken the rigor, the academic rigor and depth of A-level subjects and paired them with other parts of the IB course that we like. So it really is that amalgam, which we think is the best of both worlds.
I think that's important to mention. And so for a student like Oscar, I mean, it's not, let's be honest, it's very typical for especially the Hong Kong students to choose sciences. In an Ignite program or an extended program, would he be encouraged to take something a little bit different, humanities-based?
Absolutely. I mean, that's very much. I mean, the choice is again down to them, but they're encouraged to do that because, of course, they may come through with different passions. They might have a passion for art, and they've decided to put that to one side for their intellectual subject study, but they still have that passion. So we would look to encourage them to do that. Equally, the other way around, you've got the person that's chosen humanities, so they might pick more science-based things. They might look at medical ethics, say. So we have those skills, and that's the point. But it really is there to design to fire that passion inside them, because it's not just about, as we all know, it's not just about academic qualifications.
Is that also something to mimic something like the first year uni in the US, for example? They do all the 101 courses, which I find very interesting, especially for a child that doesn't want to specialise too soon, and they get this broad range of medical ethics sounds so interesting, but there will be a broad range of very interesting different courses.
Exactly so, because we'd be stimulating their thinking, stimulating their creativity. We talk here, we have two values of creativity and curiosity, and we want our students to be curious. We want them to be curious when they're here, but to leave knowing that curiosity is such an important value to have, because it will encourage them to keep asking questions, to not take things at face value, and to go beneath the surface. And if your interests are leading you down a path, then keep going down that path, but keep asking questions.
I should mention at this point, Dave, you're quite new to PGS, and it's been a year.
Less than that. I started in September. So
very new. And you. So, what are your plans for the next? Have you got a 3-year or a 5-year plan?
Well, I think
on it?
Yeah, no, we're working on it, so to speak, because I think it's important as a new head, you don't come in and impose your ideas. Of course, I have my ideas, but they need to marry up with where PGS is at and the community. What we are looking forward to is we've got our 300th anniversary in 2032, so many things will be looking forward to that. I think we want to continue our excellent academic profile, develop it still further. Lower down the school in Key Stage 3, so that's years 7 to 9, we're looking at revamping our curriculum and really focusing on how we can prepare students much more for the 21st century. We know that the skills and values they're going to need are ever changing. We know that perhaps they're not going to be in the same job for the whole of their life. So they need to have adaptability and flexibility. And we want to start preparing them for that younger, rather than wait until they're in the sixth form, doing that when they're younger. And that doesn't mean we won't still focus on academic subjects, because of course that's a basis too. But we're very much looking to put those changes in to year 7 to year 9, which will help prepare them even better for GCSE and A level, but also even better to go into the world and really make an impact.
Yeah, it's just such a confusing time, isn't it, to be a student, to be a head of school. I think, again, one of the criticisms of Hong Kong parents, this sounds very IB, there's a lot of the same language that's being used, whereas some parents would look at the UK system and say that it's a little bit too prescriptive, it's a bit too narrow, but that's certainly not the case, or it depends, or it's open to interpretation.
I think that's right. I mean, I think we are trying to blend the elements of the two, because we like the depth. I mean, going back to A level, you just get more depth at A level than you do at IB, but IB gives you that flexibility of thought process and that breadth. So what we try and do here is provide the breadth for the students in other means, but also give them the depth and the rigor that A level gives you.
Yeah. There's no right answer.
There is no right answer, and it's important that there are different choices out there. And I think if there was a right answer, everyone would do exactly the same thing. And clearly we don't, and that tells you something. We
are running out of time. I can't see questions, but we're going to talk to. Should we bring in Mrs. Chan?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mrs. Chan, have a seat here. So Mrs. Chan is going to tell us about her experience at PGS, and you're from Hong Kong.
Yes.
So. Can you just tell us, why did you choose PGS for your children?
Yes,
briefly.
Yeah. My husband 2 years ago confirmed to relocate from Hong Kong to UK. So his office has several bases. Some is in South and some is in North. So finally we choose South because the weather, the climate is more suitable for Hong Kong people. But finally we choose Portsmouth because we try to search a lot of school in UK, and then we search Portsmouth. We find PGS is a very good school, very high in academic, and the repetition and historical culture is very strong. So we try to reach PGS.
And your children were in a local school in Hong Kong.
Yes.
So how did they find the transition to? Did they feel welcomed and supported at PGS? Yeah.
Starting from interview with PGS teachers, principal, everybody support very well. So we go through the process for interview and assessment, and then coming into school. Every part my daughter can have support, and teachers give much help to her, and then she feel very welcome in PGS, and the classmate, she meet few friends when she's coming first day, and then those friends are her best friend up till now. She's already the second year here. The first year is year 10. Now is year 11.
This is the important year, GCSE.
Yes. Yeah. Also, we choose PGS is one thing is PGS has very strong academic in sixth form. Yeah, we find in Portsmouth and not so much school with high school and also with sixth form. The PGS can provide. Yeah, she can stay in high school and to sixth form. She don't need to train again.
Because some of the schools in the UK, the state schools, they will finish and then they need to go to sixth form college.
Yes.
Thank you. We will chat more later and we'll put the video up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I know the schools that Miss Chan's children came from, a local school, Chinese medium of instruction. So you mentioned about the EAL program, and I want to ask a little bit about the selection process for children whose English might not be where it needs to be, and what is the selection process?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we have assessment papers in English, in maths, and non-verbal reasoning, and we also, as Mr. Chan said, we have an interview, and the interview is really important. Now, we don't expect children coming from overseas to have the same level of English, but we are used to understanding the concepts and ideas that they're talking about if they can't express them yet, and we can see that. And I've worked in 4 other independent schools in this country, and I'm well used to doing interviews via Zoom, speaking to children in Hong Kong, and one can get that sense of what they're like, their personality, and in particular, what we like for our children is that they've got an enthusiasm about something. What that is can be entirely up to them, but once we get that sense of enthusiasm, which shows us some of those qualities like curiosity, like compassion that we have, we know that we can take them here and we will be able to provide them. And acquiring languages, people have different proficiencies for acquiring languages. Some of the children will come here and they will be in our EAL classes for a short period of time, and then they're ready to be fully integrated into the classroom. Others might take a bit longer, but we know the best place for them to be is with the other students, because they will learn the language much more quickly. And we'll just touch base with them on a weekly basis to keep giving them those basic building blocks to drive them forward. And occasionally, the battle usually is from the students who want to get out, because I think their English is even better, and we want to say to them, we just want to make sure your English is really, really good before we completely sign you off from EAL. But the provision is there because we want them to excel.
And then immersion, especially if they're staying with a host family, and there's really no option.
No.
And we know that children pretty much of any age will pick it up very quickly, but it's just about the attitude in the beginning, because we do see a lot of schools, even in Hong Kong, that will actually decline a student for entry because they feel that they would struggle to learn in English, whereas before they've just been learning English.
So for us, it will be to do with the age at which they're coming into the school as well.
Right.
Clearly you have different expectations of somebody coming into year 12 as you would from year 7. But as you said there, and as we clearly believe, because we're in education, we believe that people can be taught things and can learn things. Otherwise, what's the point of being a school teacher? So we're prepared to take them, and they will learn and they will pick it up. And being in this environment, they will pick it up really quickly. And then we have some children who then apologise that their English isn't perfect. And as you can tell from me speaking, my English isn't perfect either. And I've been living in this country for over 40 years.
So it's not a selective school per se.
Not based around on their English ability. It is an academically selective school.
So talk us through. Is it Cat 4 test that you use for baseline assessment?
No, we send our own tests out.
So is it cognitive ability?
Yeah, so we're looking at there's partly English. Maths in particular was a very good predictor. In fact, maths is a really good predictor for how they're going to perform at English.
Yes.
For GCSE, and we do non-verbal reasoning, which gives us a score. Gives us information as well.
Right.
We can do our figures, and we know that the maths test is the best predictor for GCSE results.
Interesting. Is that right? That's very interesting. I would have completely failed that test.
I doubt that very much.
So it's not selective, and so English as a second language is certainly not an issue.
Not at all. Not at all.
But academically selective. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because obviously you have a commitment to produce the results that you produce, and you do have the half a grade value add, but there has to be a certain
there's a certain level because of the nature of the school, and we want the children to come to the right school for them, whatever school that is. And we are, as Oscar has alluded to, an academically able school. We have a range within the school. So if we're using the scores from about 110 to about 140, is where we are in terms of our baseline testing, which is absolutely fine. But within that, the attitude of the student is really crucial too, because it's students that are prepared to come and work hard will get the most out of things, and that's a snapshot in time. It's not a marker that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. So we have that basis, so that puts us by British standards above national average in terms of our intake. Do
you want to just explain that, because I understand, but what does 110 to 140?
Yeah, so we do baseline testing, and it's a bell curve, and the bell curve 100 is the middle of the bell curve, essentially, and so
standard average.
The average. So and there'll be students who go down to about 60, and 140 is the highest. And if you're at 140, you're in the top percentile. And essentially most of our students are from 110 to 140.
Yeah. And that's very similar to what we have. We do the same testing, and almost all the students in Hong Kong are scoring within that same range. I was going to come to the happiness as a value, because we're talking about bringing children over to the UK, and some parents might not be completely on board with boarding. We hear that a lot. The separation and the anxiety, it all feels like too much. So living in Portsmouth with a family, or if the family indeed choose to relocate and they all live together, and how do you measure the happiness of your children? Because that is surely linked to academic success.
Correct. So we talk about our children being happy and successful, and deliberately the happy comes first, because we know that if children aren't happy, the rest of it is quite hard to drive forward. So we have really good relationship with our homestay families. That personal connection is really important. Every day when the students come into school, they also will be spending 20 minutes with their tutor in small tutor groups, and they'll have that personal connection, that eyes on, which we think is so important. And our tutors are very good at spotting issues. Then through the school day, I have to say this is a really caring community. So sometimes we have people such as our catering team come and stop a teacher and say, "I'm a bit worried about X because they seem a little bit down today," and usually they're quite happy. So we have that information going in. We have a structure which then has heads of years and above that. But the real key is that close contact between the school and home, because we want to ensure our children are happy. And without that, we're building on foundations of sand. So happiness comes first.
Yeah. And if that's a homestay environment, then that's like the home away from home.
The home away from home, and the relationships we have with our homestay families are excellent. And they will come in. They'll come to the students' parents' evenings. They will involve themselves in the students' lives. They're not a distant thing that somebody stuck up in a bedroom somewhere. They are actively involved in the children's lives, and that's the selection process right at the start for a homestay family. If they're not prepared to engage and do those things, then they're not the kind of family we want. We want that engagement, because we want the students to be supported.
How many children do you have on a homestay? It's quite a new program, I understand.
Yeah, so I think we're just in 8 to 10, I think.
Right, and you've got capacity to
to grow, because I think we see it as a real growth area, because we see it as the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it's such an interesting option, honestly. We first started talking about this several months ago, and I know for some schools operate a homestay, but I haven't really grasped the concept. And
we found it's really worked, and that's why we're looking to expand the program, and we're looking to move it from 10 to 20, and then from 20 to 30, to 30. And we think that would be a really good number. We'll be able to support those children. They will come. We think they'll thrive here. They will also offer so much to our community by providing that globalised outlook on the world, which is so important today.
Yeah. So we are running out of time. We could talk all day. We have a couple of questions which I think we've answered about the selection process and about the English instruction. So we'll definitely comment on those questions in more detail later on. I want to maybe end by asking you, and I know that you're new here, but if you had to use 5 words to describe PGS, just 5,
yeah,
I'll be counting, what would they be?
The first word is welcoming. Without a shadow of a doubt, it is such a welcoming place. My favourite day was the first day of the year when the students came back in and I saw my staff, the way they welcomed them. It was just beautiful and really heartwarming. So welcoming would be one. Diverse, definitely. You can't help but think the school it is not diverse. Ambitious. We're ambitious as a school, but we're also ambitious for our pupils, and they're ambitious for themselves, which I think is a great thing, and it will take them to many different places. Forward-looking, we're very proud of our tradition. We're proud of we've been here almost 300 years, but we're not a place that's set in the past. We look to the future because we want to prepare our students for the future. And caring, I think it's a really caring environment. That goes back to that happy and successful. It's happy first, because then you'll be successful.
Why did you choose to come to the school?
I chose to come to school for a number of reasons. I've known about the reputation of PGS for a very long time because I was born not too far from here. My father used to work on Portsdown Hill, which overlooks Portsmouth. So I've known about the school. Secondly, I felt ready to come to the school because I'd already served a headship somewhere else and I felt that I could contribute to the school. The third reason is because when I came here, I felt very much at home. I felt welcome, and I felt that palpable sense of community. I loved the diversity of the school, and more importantly, at the school there's a real commitment to bursaries, so to giving financial assistance to children who otherwise couldn't afford to come here, and I'm really passionate about that because it transforms people's lives. And I went into teaching a long time ago because I wanted to make a difference, and I feel that this school makes a difference for all of our pupils.
It's so important that parents do come to visit the school because, as I say, we've been talking for a few months. I arrived here yesterday and had a very good look around, and it's so different than talking to you on Zoom and actually coming here. And we always say to parents that you have to see the school, but you have to smell it, you have to feel it, and there's something emotional that happens when you step inside the school. Unfortunately, maybe not all of our parents will be able to come, but they can meet you in Hong Kong at the end of the month. Absolutely,
yeah. So Judy Jackson, who's the head of admissions, and I are coming to Hong Kong in the last weekend of the month because we want to meet people face to face. We want to have that personal connection, that personal interaction, because we think it's important, and we're only too happy to meet people and answer any questions they have about school.
So that will be the next best thing.
Completely.
And we'll put the link, we'll put all of the details in the comments, and we'll send it to everybody that was watching today. Thank you for doing this, David. It's been so interesting. Thank you for having me, and I hope that we get to meet some of our parents in Hong Kong at the end of the month.
Oh, thank you, Ruth, for facilitating.
Thank you, and thank you for watching, and we'll say goodbye.